Elena stood frozen, watching the wine spill across the floor like blood. Ryan had just thrown his glass against the wall. His eyes burned with the kind of anger that had no reason, anger that came from pride, not pain. "You never listen, Elena," he shouted, pacing in front of her. "I'm working my life away to build something, and all you do is sit at home doing nothing." Elena didn't flinch. She had learned long ago that silence hurt him more than words ever could. She picked up the towel, knelt, and started cleaning the mess. Ryan scoffed. "Of course, that's what you're good at, cleaning up after me." Her fingers trembled as she squeezed the towel, but her face stayed calm. If only he knew the truth. If only he knew that the office he bragged about, the company he loved, the dream he claimed to have built on his own, was standing on her quiet support and secret investment. She looked up slowly and said, almost whispering, "You think you're the only one building something, Ryan?" He rolled his eyes. "You? Building what? Recipes and laundry piles?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. 2 years earlier, when Ryan had come home announcing his big idea, a tech platform that would change everything, Elena had been the first to believe in him. She'd watch him talk for hours, drawing plans on napkins, glowing with excitement. He had no idea she came from old money, that her late father had left her a fortune she'd quietly invested through a private firm called EM Holdings. She'd wanted him to succeed without feeling small. She didn't want him to ever say, "You made me feel like less of a man." So she hid it. She told him she had a tiny savings account and nothing more. When his startup began to collapse 6 months in, she'd quietly instructed her financial manager to invest in it through her firm. The money saved him, kept his business afloat, paid his staff, bought his first round of equipment. Ryan celebrated that victory like it was his own genius. Elena clapped for him, smiled for him, and stayed invisible. But lately, something has changed. His tone, his glances, his constant need to remind her she was lucky to have him. It wasn't the shouting that hurt, it was the distance. The way he had stopped saying "we" and started saying "I." She rose to her feet, set the towel aside, and said softly, "Maybe you've forgotten, but I've been here since day one." Ryan snorted. "Being here isn't the same as doing something, Elena. You don't bring any money in. You don't understand business. You're—" He stopped mid-sentence when his phone buzzed. He looked down and smiled. The kind of smile he hadn't given her in months. "Tasha," he said under his breath, grinning. "Elena froze. Her best friend. The woman she'd known since college. "Why's she calling you at midnight?" she asked. "She's helping me with a pitch deck," he replied quickly, pocketing his phone. "You wouldn't understand." She looked at him for a long time, saying nothing. 1,000 suspicions flooded her, but she didn't ask. She didn't need to. That night, she cried quietly into her pillow while Ryan slept beside her, smiling in his dreams. Weeks passed. The house grew quieter. Ryan spent more nights working late. Tasha called more often, and Elena learned to smile through the ache. One afternoon, she walked into Ryan's office to bring him lunch. He was on a video call. His hand rested casually on Tasha's shoulder as they laughed about something on his laptop. They didn't even notice her standing at the door. She set the food down, whispered, "You forgot to eat," and walked out. That evening, he came home irritated again. "You embarrassed me today," he said. "You just barged into a meeting." "A meeting?" she asked, voice trembling. "With my best friend?" He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Don't start. You're acting jealous. Tasha's helping me with investors. She understands ambition." Elena's lips parted, but no words came out. That night, while Ryan showered, she sat on the bed and stared at their wedding photo. The frame suddenly looked foreign. The woman in that picture was gone. Too trusting, too hopeful. The breaking point came a week later. It was Sunday morning, and the house smelled of fresh coffee. Elena was setting the table when Ryan came downstairs dressed in a suit. "You're going out? On a Sunday?" "Yeah," he said. "Meeting investors. With Tasha." He looked at her then, really looked. And for the first time, there was no guilt in his eyes. Just a decision. "Elena," he began, sighing deeply. "Let's stop pretending. This whatever we have, it's not working." The spoon in her hand clinked against the cup. "What do you mean?" "I'm filing for divorce." The world seemed to freeze around her. I need someone who matches my ambition, he continued coldly. Someone who gets the business world. You don't. You never did. She stared at him. And that person is Tasha. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Tears gathered in her eyes, but her voice stayed steady. After everything, Ryan, he shrugged. You'll be fine. I'll make sure you get something small from the settlement. Something small. He walked out, leaving the smell of cologne and betrayal behind him. That night, Elena didn't cry. She sat in silence, her mind sharp and still. At dawn, she called her financial manager. Pull out every investment from Ryan Keller Technologies, she said. The man on the phone hesitated. Ma'am, that's nearly 40% of their funding. Are you sure? Yes, she replied. Completely sure. She ended the call, her heart pounding with calm fury. Within 2 weeks, Ryan's company began to unravel. Suppliers pulled out. Developers quit. His board panicked. The mysterious investor, Holdings, had withdrawn without explanation, and other investors followed. Ryan was too busy planning his engagement with Tasha to notice the disaster brewing underneath. By the time he realized what was happening, his empire was already sinking. He sat in his office, surrounded by unpaid bills and angry emails. How could this happen? He muttered, pacing. We were doing fine. Tasha, standing beside him in designer heels, crossed her arms. Maybe you should have been more careful who you trusted. You think this is my fault? I think, she said coldly, that you've lost your touch. He stared at her, stunned. When she left that evening, she didn't come back. Ryan Keller was officially alone. 3 months later, Elena stood in front of a mirror in her new penthouse overlooking the city. Her reflection was different now. Calm, powerful, unrecognizable. She'd rebranded her father's investment firm and taken full control. Holdings was no longer a silent name on paperwork. It was her empire. Her phone buzzed. A message from the business news app lit up the screen. Ryan Keller Technologies files for bankruptcy. She stared at it for a long moment, then set the phone down and smiled faintly. Not out of cruelty, not out of revenge, just closure. She'd given him everything once: love, loyalty, trust, and he'd chosen pride. Now she had something he could never take away: power and peace. She turned toward the window, the city lights dancing in her eyes. Let him learn, she whispered. Some lessons are expensive. Ryan sat in the same office where he used to boast about his success, but now the lights flickered, the furniture looked smaller, and the silence was heavy. His once bustling company floor was nearly empty. Only a few interns remained, whispering about unpaid salaries and rumors that the firm would shut down any day. He pressed his palms to his face. How did this happen? When he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was the framed picture of him and Tasha on their wedding day. Only 6 months ago. She looked radiant, and he looked proud. He picked up the frame and threw it into the trash. That night, he called her. Straight to voicemail. Days turned into weeks. The investors vanished, the press mocked him, and Tasha's social media showed her vacationing in Dubai with another man. For the first time in years, Ryan tasted humility. It was bitter. One morning, as he packed his things from the office, his secretary stepped in. Sir, you got a call from Holdings. They said you requested a meeting. He froze. They agreed to meet? Yes, at the Grand Royal Hotel. Tomorrow at 8. Ryan's heart leaped. Maybe this was it. A chance to rebuild. To apologize. To start again. The next evening, he arrived at the hotel, straightened his tie, and tried to mask the exhaustion on his face. He stepped into the ballroom filled with investors and CEOs. The place glittered with luxury. At the far end of the room stood a woman in an elegant black gown, surrounded by people eager to speak with her. Her posture, her poise, her quiet confidence drew every gaze. He squinted. She looked familiar. Then she turned slightly, and his heart stopped. Elena. For a moment, his body forgot to move. His ex-wife, the woman he had dismissed, humiliated, left behind, stood there glowing like she owned the room. And maybe she did. He swallowed hard and approached slowly, like a man stepping into a memory he wished he could rewrite. Elena, he said softly, her expression calm but unreadable. Ryan, wow, you look different. She smiled faintly. Life has a way of changing people. He nodded awkwardly, his voice trembling. I've been trying to reach someone from EM Holdings. They pulled out of my company, and everything just went downhill. I wanted to explain. Her eyes didn't move. Explain what exactly? I don't know, maybe fix things. I had no idea they were that important to our funding. She studied him for a moment before saying quietly, "You never really cared who was behind your success, did you?" "What do you mean?" "Elena Marie Holdings," she said slowly. "EM Holdings. My full name." He blinked. For a second, the noise around him faded. Then his voice cracked. "No, you." She nodded. "I was your key investor, Ryan. I believed in you when no one else did. Every piece of equipment, every contract, every loan. You got it because I quietly made it happen." He took a step back, his breath shallow. I don't understand. Why would you hide that from me?" "Because I wanted you to feel capable," she said. "I didn't want to bruise your ego. I wanted to see the man I married become what he dreamed to be. But then you decided I was useless, that I wasn't ambitious enough for you." The words cut sharper than any slap. "Elena, please listen, I didn't mean." "You did," she interrupted softly. "Every time you told me I wasn't good enough. Every time you compare me to Tasha. Every time you made me feel small in my own home." He stood frozen, guilt washing over him. "I was stupid," he whispered. "I was blind." "You were proud," she corrected. "And pride always collects its payment." The crowd around them buzzed, cameras flashing, laughter echoing. But at that moment, it felt like only the two of them existed. He exhaled, desperate. "Can we talk? Privately? Please, Elena. I lost everything. I just want to make things right." She looked at him for a long time, her expression softening just slightly. "Right? There's no version of right where you break someone and come back when it's convenient." A voice from the stage interrupted them. The event's host tapped the microphone and smiled brightly. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue tonight's charity auction, I'd like to welcome our newest board member and lead investor, Miss Elena Marie of EM Holdings." Applause erupted. Cameras turned. Ryan's face drained of color. The host continued, "And we're honored to announce that EM Holdings has officially acquired the remaining assets of Keller Technologies." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Elena turned to look at Ryan, who stood paralyzed, humiliation and shock twisting his features. She leaned closer and whispered, "Looks like we'll still be working together, in a way." He stammered, You bought my company?" "No," she said calmly. "I rescued what was left of it." She turned toward the stage as the applause swelled again. Ryan stumbled backward, unable to process what had just happened. His entire empire, his pride, his identity, now belonged to the woman he'd once called useless. Later that night, after the gala ended, Elena walked out of the hotel. The night air was cool, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. Her driver opened the car door, but before she entered, a voice called out behind her. "Elena, wait." She turned. Ryan stood at the steps, breathless. His tie was undone, his face pale. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "You have every right to hate me. I lost sight of everything that mattered. I thought money and success made me powerful, but you," he paused, tears threatening. "You had the real power all along." Elena looked at him quietly. "You're not wrong." "I don't expect forgiveness," he continued. "But if I could start over, I would choose you again." She smiled sadly. "You already had that choice, Ryan." He lowered his head, silent. After a long moment, she added gently, "I don't hate you. I just learned to love myself more than your approval." He looked up, eyes glistening. "Is this really goodbye?" She nodded. It already was. She stepped into her car. As it pulled away, Ryan stood watching the taillights fade into the night. The city skyline shimmered outside the tinted windows. Elena sat in silence, replaying everything in her mind. The love, the betrayal, the rise. Her assistant glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "Rough night," she smiled faintly. "Necessary night. Do you ever miss him?" She looked out the window, her reflection soft against the glass. "Sometimes. But missing someone isn't the same as wanting them back." The assistant nodded. "You handled it gracefully. Not everyone could do that." Elena chuckled quietly. "Grace is power in disguise." The car slowed as it reached her penthouse. Before stepping out, she took one last deep breath and whispered to herself, "I'm finally free." The next morning, social media buzzed with headlines. Ex-wife becomes owner of husband's failed company. Poetic justice at its finest. Her inbox overflowed with invitations to interviews, conferences, and partnerships. But she ignored most of them. Some victories didn't need to be explained. They only needed to be lived. She spent the afternoon at her office, finalizing a donation plan for women-owned startups. When her assistant handed her the check to sign, she paused for a second. At the bottom of the page, in the memo line, she wrote, "For every woman who was ever told she wasn't enough." She smiled, capped her pen, and leaned back. The sunlight touched her face, warm and golden. Somewhere deep inside, the last piece of her old self finally healed. Sometimes the best revenge is silence. Sometimes the sweetest justice is peace. And sometimes walking away is the most powerful thing you'll ever do. If you love Elena's story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us, what would you have done if you were in her place? Would you forgive, or would you walk away too? Your voice matters here on Billionaires Story Nest.